I was driving home from work when I called my mom to ask if she needed anything from the grocery store. It was a Tuesday evening, traffic was light, and I was looking forward to a quiet dinner at home. Mom answered after 2 rings. "Hi, honey. No, we don't need anything. I'm about to hang up now." I heard a rustling sound, then silence, but the call didn't disconnect. That's when I heard it. My mom's voice, clearer than ever, talking to my sister Hannah. "Living with her is awful, but we're only staying because of her money." Hannah's laughter erupted through the phone, sharp and cruel. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. My car swerved slightly into the next lane, and a horn blared behind me. I pulled over to the side of the road, my heart hammering against my ribs. I couldn't believe what I'd just heard, but I didn't hang up. I kept listening, my phone pressed so hard against my ear it hurt. Mom continued talking, her voice casual, like she was discussing the weather. "She works like a horse, comes home and just sleeps. So boring, but the money she gives us, that's fantastic." I felt sick. Hannah's voice joined in, younger, more excited. "Mom, you know Abigail just got a $30,000 bonus last week. She left the check in her drawer." There was a pause. Then Mom asked, "Can you get it?" Hannah giggled. "I can try. Abigail trusts me completely. She never suspects anything." I sat in my car, frozen. 2 years. It had been 2 years since Dad died, since I brought Mom and Hannah to live with me in my spacious house in the suburbs of Denver. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being a good daughter, a good sister. I worked 60-hour weeks as a chief accountant at a major firm, making sure they had everything they needed. Every time I bought Mom a gift, she'd ask if she could exchange it for cash instead. Every time Hannah borrowed money for an emergency, she never paid it back. I'd brushed it off, thinking family didn't keep score. How stupid I'd been. My mind raced through memories, each one now tainted with suspicion. Last month, when I took them shopping and bought Mom that expensive coat she wanted, she'd hugged me, tears in her eyes, calling me her precious daughter. Had that been fake too? When Hannah cried about her car breaking down and I gave her $5,000 for repairs, was that a lie? I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air that wouldn't fill my lungs. The inside of my car felt suffocatingly small. I rolled down the window, but it didn't help. The evening air was cool, but sweat dripped down my back. I couldn't go home. Not yet. I needed to think. I drove to a coffee shop 3 blocks away from my house in Aurora and parked in the back of the lot. My hands were still shaking as I pulled out my phone to check my bank account. I rarely looked at it in detail. I made good money, saved automatically, and trusted that everything was fine. That trust now felt like the biggest mistake of my life. I logged into my savings account, the one I'd been building since I was 21 years old. My stomach dropped. $25,000 was missing, withdrawn yesterday. Only 3 people had access to this account. Me, Mom, who I'd given the password to in case of emergencies, and Hannah, who I'd trusted with it in case something happened to me. I stared at the number on the screen. $25,000 gone. Just like that. This wasn't just cruel words. This was theft. Real, actual theft. I called the bank immediately, my voice shaking as I explained. I needed to check recent activity. The representative, a woman named Lisa with a kind voice, pulled up my account. "Yes, Ms. Abigail, the transaction was made from your home computer at 2:15 p.m. yesterday with the correct password. There were no signs of suspicious activity from our end." My throat tightened. "Can you show me transaction history for the past 6 months?" There was typing on the other end, then silence. Then Lisa said carefully, "Ms. Abigail, there have been 10 withdrawals from your savings account over the past 6 months." 10 withdrawals? I felt the world tilt. "How much total?" I whispered. Lisa paused, then said gently, "Two $10,000. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. Two $10,000. That was everything. Everything I'd saved since I started working at age 21. 9 years of careful planning, of skipping vacations, of buying practical things instead of luxuries. All gone, stolen by the two people I loved most in the world." I thanked Lisa and hung up. I sat in that parking lot as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that felt mockingly beautiful. How could the world look so normal when mine had just imploded? I needed evidence, solid evidence, not just to confirm what I already knew in my gut, but to make sure they couldn't lie their way out of this. I took a deep breath, started my car, and drove home. But I didn't go through the front door. I parked down the street and walked around to the back of my house. My bedroom window was on the first floor, and I always left it slightly open for fresh air. I climbed through, grateful I'd kept up with my yoga classes. My room was empty. I could hear the television playing downstairs, Mom and Hannah watching some reality show, their laughter drifting up through the vents. That laughter used to make me happy. Now it made my skin crawl. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My hands moved automatically, checking browser history. There it was. Multiple logins to my bank account from Hannah's user profile on my computer. She'd been doing this for months. I scrolled through the history, my vision blurring with tears. She didn't just access my savings. She'd been using my credit cards too. Shopping online, designer handbags, shoes, clothes, jewelry. I opened my credit card statements, something I'd been too busy and too trusting to check regularly. $70,000 in charges, $70,000 I didn't spend. My sister had stolen over $280,000 from me in total, and I'd been too blind to see it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of my house. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my door. "Hannah?" She paused, and I held my breath. Then she moved on, heading to the bathroom. I waited until I heard her door close again before I got up. I needed more evidence. I needed to understand how deep this went. I crept downstairs to the kitchen, moving silently in the darkness. I knew every creak in these floorboards, every loose board to avoid. This was my house. I'd bought it 4 years ago, worked myself to exhaustion to afford it, and they'd turned it into their personal bank. I made it to Mom's room on the first floor. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open slowly, praying it wouldn't squeak. The room was dark, Mom's breathing deep and steady. I turned on my phone's flashlight, keeping it low, and pointed at the floor. I needed to find something, anything, that would help me understand. Her dresser was cluttered with the expensive creams and perfumes I'd bought her. I opened the drawers carefully. Clothes, more clothes, some still with tags on them, things I'd never seen her wear. In the bottom drawer, under a stack of sweaters, I found a metal lockbox. My heart pounded. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I needed the key. I searched the room, checking under the mattress, in the closet, inside shoeboxes. Nothing. Then I remembered Mom always wore a specific necklace, a silver chain she never took off. Could the key be on that? I crept closer to her bed. She was lying on her side, the chain visible against her neck. I reached out, my hand shaking. My fingers touched the cold metal. There was something small hanging from it, a tiny key. I held my breath and worked the clasp of the necklace, trying to be as gentle as possible. It took forever. Finally, it came loose. Mom stirred, mumbling something in her sleep. I froze, not even breathing. After what felt like an eternity, her breathing steadied again. I took the key and went back to the lockbox. My hands trembled as I inserted the key and turned it. Click. Inside were papers, bank statements, but not for accounts I recognized. I pulled them out and read by the light of my phone. These were accounts in my name, accounts I'd never opened. Credit cards, a personal loan, a line of credit. All in my name, all with significant balances. The credit cards alone had $35,000 charged on them. The personal loan was for $50,000. The line of credit had been drawn to its maximum of $35,000, $120,000 in debt that I knew nothing about. They'd forged my signature. They'd stolen my identity. This wasn't just theft anymore. This was systematic fraud. I took pictures of everything with my phone, making sure every document was clear and readable. Then I carefully put everything back, locked the box, and returned it to the drawer exactly as I'd found it. I needed to return Mom's necklace. I crept back to her bedside, my heart in my throat. As I reached for her neck to refasten the chain, she suddenly rolled over. I jumped back, pressing myself against the wall. She was facing me now, her eyes still closed, but she was stirring. I waited, barely breathing until she settled again. Then, moving with painful slowness, I managed to get the necklace back on. I left the room as quickly as I dared, my legs shaking so badly I nearly fell on the stairs. Back in my room, I forwarded all the photos to my email, then to a cloud storage service. I wasn't taking any chances. Then I allowed myself to feel it. All of it. The betrayal, the anger, the grief. I sank to the floor, my back against the bed, and cried silently into my hands. These were the people who were supposed to love me. Mom had held me when I scraped my knee as a child. Hannah and I used to share secrets late at night when we were kids. We'd been close once, or so I thought. Had any of it been real? Or had I always just been a mark to them, a source of money to exploit? I thought about Dad. He died when I was 28. Or at least that's what Mom told me. A car accident, she'd said, crying on the phone. I'd flown home immediately, handled all the funeral arrangements, paid for everything. But now, sitting in the darkness of my bedroom, I realized something strange. The funeral had been small, closed casket. Mom said Dad's injuries were too severe, that he'd been cremated quickly. I'd never questioned it because I was drowning in grief. But there had been no friends at the funeral, no co-workers, no extended family, just me, Mom, and Hannah. At the time, I thought it was because Dad had been a private person. Now I wondered if there was another reason. Morning came too soon. I heard Mom and Hannah moving around downstairs, their voices cheerful. I forced myself to get up, wash my face, and get dressed for work. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were red and swollen, dark circles underneath them. I looked like I'd been through hell because I had been. I applied extra makeup, trying to cover the evidence of my sleepless night. Then I went downstairs. Mom was in the kitchen, making coffee. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said with a bright smile. Hannah was at the table, scrolling through her phone. She looked up. "Morning, sis. You look tired. Rough night at work?" I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to throw all the evidence in their faces and watch them squirm, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled. "Just a long week. I'm going to head in early today." Mom poured me a cup of coffee. "You work too hard, honey. Don't forget to take care of yourself." The irony of her words was almost funny. Don't forget to take care of myself when she was bleeding me dry. I took the coffee, drank it quickly, and left. As I drove to work, I called the lawyer I'd consulted yesterday. Michael, his secretary put me through immediately. "Abigail, I've been thinking about your case. You need solid evidence, bank statements, security footage if you have it, Any written communication? I told him about what I'd found last night. The forged documents, the fake accounts. Michael was quiet for a moment, then said, "This is bigger than simple theft. This is identity fraud on a significant scale. You need to file a police report immediately, but first, secure your assets. Change all your passwords, freeze your credit, call your banks and credit card companies." I thanked him and hung up. Then I did exactly what he said. By the time I got to my office, I'd changed every password I had, using random strings of numbers and letters I wrote down in a secure app. I'd called my bank and frozen my accounts. I'd contacted the credit bureaus and placed fraud alerts on my credit report. I was taking back control, but I needed more. I needed irrefutable proof of them stealing from me in real time. That afternoon, during my lunch break, I went to an electronics store and bought 2 small security cameras. They were designed to look like ordinary objects, a clock and a picture frame. I'd install them in my bedroom and home office tonight. That evening, I left work early, telling my boss I had a doctor's appointment. I got home before Mom and Hannah returned from wherever they'd gone. I quickly set up the cameras, connecting them to an app on my phone. I could watch live footage and receive alerts whenever motion was detected. Then I left again, going to sit at the same coffee shop as yesterday, waiting for them to come home. An hour later, my phone buzzed, motion detected in my home office. I opened the app and watched the live feed. Hannah walked into my office, looked around carefully, then sat at my computer. She tried to log in, but my password had changed. She frowned, tried a few combinations I'd apparently used before. Nothing worked. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. I couldn't hear the audio through the camera, but I watched her mouth move. She looked frustrated. After a few minutes, she hung up, looked through the papers on my desk, then left. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. The password change had stopped her, at least for now, but this confirmed everything. She'd been systematically stealing from me, and she was trying to do it again right now. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I went to work, came home at my usual time. Mom made dinner, and we all sat together at the kitchen table, just like we had for the past 2 years. Hannah talked about some show she was watching. Mom asked about my day. I answered in short sentences, struggling to keep my voice steady. After dinner, I went upstairs to my room. Around 9 p.m., I heard a knock on my door. "Come in," I called. Hannah entered, her expression friendly. "Hey sis, can I borrow your laptop? Mine is acting weird, and I need to check my email." This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. "Sure," I said, getting up from my bed. "Let me just log you in." I opened my laptop, deliberately typed in the wrong password 3 times, making it look accidental. Ugh, I keep forgetting my new password. I changed it after that security breach warning I got. Hannah's eyes flickered with something I couldn't quite read. Annoyance, fear. "Oh, you changed all your passwords?" she asked casually. "Yeah, all of them. Someone tried to hack my email last week, so I updated everything." I pretended to struggle with the password again, then finally logged in. "Here you go. What do you need to check?" Hannah hesitated. "Actually, never mind. I'll just use my phone. Thanks anyway." She left quickly, too quickly. I watched her go, my heart racing. She'd been planning to access my accounts again, and now she knew she couldn't. I waited 30 minutes, then quietly left my room and stood in the hallway. I could hear voices from downstairs, Mom and Hannah talking in hushed tones. I crept closer to the stairs, staying in the shadows. "She changed all her passwords," Hannah was saying. "I can't get into anything." Mom's voice was sharp. "Did she say why?" "Some story about a security breach. But Mom, I think she knows. There was a long silence. Then Mom said, "We need to move faster. How much do we have now?" Hannah answered, "About $350,000 total from her accounts. But there's more in her investment account. Almost $300,000 if we could get that." Mom cut her off. "Too risky now. We need to prepare to leave." My blood ran cold. Leave? They were planning to run. "But what about the house?" Hannah asked. "She owns it, Mom. We can't take that." Mom laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "No, but we can make her life hell before we go. Remember the plan we discussed? The one with the promissory notes? The fake loan documents?" Hannah sounded excited. "Yes. We'll say Abigail borrowed $200,000 from us over the past 2 years. We have the forged documents ready. If she tries to come after us, we'll countersue. It'll tie her up in legal battles for years." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They'd planned this. All of this. The fake loan documents I'd found in Mom's lockbox weren't just covering their tracks. They were preparing to frame me. I backed away from the stairs, my mind racing. I needed to act now. I couldn't wait any longer. I went back to my room, grabbed my phone, and called Michael. It was late, almost 10 p.m., but he answered. "Abigail, what's wrong?" I told him everything I'd just heard. "They're planning to leave. They're planning to frame me with fake loan documents." Michael was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You need to file a police report tonight, and you need to secure those documents from your mother's room. Can you do that safely?" I thought about it. Mom and Hannah were still downstairs. "I can try." "Be careful," Michael warned. "If they suspect you're on to them, this could get dangerous." I hung up and steeled myself. I had to do this. I crept downstairs again, moving as silently as I could. Mom and Hannah were in the living room now, the TV on. I could see them through the doorway. I slipped into Mom's room, closing the door softly behind me. I went straight to the bottom drawer, pulled it out, but the lockbox wasn't there. My heart sank. They'd moved it. I searched frantically but quietly, checking every drawer, every hiding spot I could think of. Nothing. They must have taken it upstairs to Hannah's room. I left Mom's room and headed toward the stairs, but as I reached the bottom step, the living room light flickered off. I heard footsteps. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. Mom walked past, heading to the kitchen. She didn't see me. I waited until she was gone, then hurried up the stairs. Hannah's room was at the end of the hall. The door was closed. I pressed my ear against it, listening. Silence. I tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. I went back to my room, my mind spinning. I needed those documents, but I couldn't get to them unless I did something drastic. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I waited until Mom and Hannah left the house. They said they were going shopping and would be gone for a few hours. As soon as their car pulled out of the driveway, I went to Hannah's room. I'd never picked a lock before, but I'd watched enough YouTube videos to know the basics. Using a bobby pin and a small screwdriver from my toolbox, I worked at the lock. It took 15 minutes of frustrating attempts, but finally, it clicked open. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Hannah's room was messy. Clothes everywhere, makeup scattered across her dresser. I searched quickly, checking under her bed, in her closet, through her desk drawers. Finally, I found it. The lockbox was in the back of her closet, hidden under a pile of shoes. I opened it with the key I'd secretly copied 2 nights ago when I'd borrowed Mom's necklace. Inside were the documents I'd seen before, plus new ones. A promissory note, dated and signed with my forged signature, stating I'd borrowed $50,000 from Mary and agreed to pay it back with interest. Another note for $75,000, another for $30,000. 3 fake loans totaling $155,000. But there was something else. Plane tickets. 2 of them. One for Mary, one for Hannah. Destination? Cancun. Departure date? 3 days from now. They were leaving. They were really leaving, and they were planning to take everything and disappear. I took photos of everything. The tickets, the fake loan documents, all of it. Then I heard something that made my blood freeze. A car door slamming. They were back early. I shoved everything back into the lockbox, closed it, and ran out of Hannah's room. I barely had time to close her door when I heard the front door open downstairs. "Abigail?" Mom called. "Out." "Are you home? I thought you had work today." I took a breath, trying to steady my voice. "I'm sick," I called down. "Stayed home today." I heard footsteps on the stairs. Hannah appeared, her eyes immediately going to her bedroom door. She walked over, tried the handle. It was unlocked. I'd forgotten to relock it. She turned to me, her expression suspicious. "Were you in my room?" "No," I said, trying to sound confused. "Why would I be in your room?" She stared at me for a long moment, then pushed her door open and went inside. I went into my own room and closed the door, my heart pounding. That was close. Too close. I heard Hannah moving around, checking things. Then silence. I waited, barely breathing. A few minutes later, there was a knock on my door. "Come in," I said. Both Mom and Hannah stood there, their faces serious. Mom spoke first. "Abigail, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. "About what?" Mom's expression was sad, sympathetic even, a perfect mask. "Honey, we're worried about you. You've been acting strange lately. The password changes, calling in sick, and now Hannah says you were in her room." "I wasn't in her room," I protested. Hannah shook her head, her eyes welling with tears. Fake tears. I could see it now, how fake everything about her was. "Sis, I think you've been under too much stress, working so hard, taking care of us. Maybe you need help. Professional help." I stared at them, understanding dawning. This was their play. If I accused them, they'd say I was unstable. They'd say I was imagining things. Classic gaslighting. "I don't need help," I said firmly. "I'm fine." Mom sat on my bed, patting the spot next to her. "Come sit with me, sweetie. Let's talk about this." I didn't move. "There's nothing to talk about. I'm fine, and I wasn't in Hannah's room." Mom's expression hardened just slightly. "Abigail, you've been borrowing money from us for years. Do you remember? You owe us quite a bit." My breath caught. Here it was, the lie they were planning to tell. "I never borrowed money from you," I said. Hannah pulled out a paper from her pocket, one of the forged promissory notes. "You did, sis. You were drunk one night, crying about debts. We helped you out. You signed this." I looked at the document, at my forged signature. It was good. If I didn't know better, I might have believed it myself. "That's not my signature," I said. Mom stood up, her friendly mask slipping. "Abigail, we have 3 notes like this. You owe us $155,000. We've been patient, but if you're going to be difficult about this, we'll have to take legal action." I felt the trap closing around me. They were going to claim I owed them money, using documents I'd allegedly signed. Who would believe me when they had paperwork? But I had something they didn't know about. Evidence. Photos. Camera footage. I just needed to get to the police before they could do more damage. "I need some air," said, standing up. "I'm going for a walk." Mom stepped in front of the door. "I don't think that's a good idea. You're clearly not well. Maybe we should call someone." This was it. They were going to try to have me committed or something, make me look crazy. "Get out of my way," I said, my voice harder than I'd ever used with her. Mom's eyes widened, but she didn't move. Then I heard Hannah behind me, on the phone. Yes, I need help. My sister is having a mental health crisis. She's being aggressive, and we're scared. She was calling 911. She was actually calling the police on me. Everything moved in slow motion after that. I tried to push past Mom, but she grabbed my arm. Abigail, calm down, she said loudly, as if performing for an audience. I jerked away, and in doing so, knocked my phone off the nightstand. It hit the floor, and the screen cracked, spiderwebbing across the glass. She's destroying things, Hannah cried into the phone. Please hurry. I bent down to grab my phone, but Mom was faster. She kicked it away, and it skidded under the bed. I dropped to my knees, reaching for it. Stop, Mom said. You're scaring us. I grabbed my phone and stood up, backing toward the window. I'm calling my lawyer, I said. But when I tried to unlock my phone, the cracked screen wouldn't respond properly. I pressed harder, desperately trying to make it work. Then I heard sirens. Within 15 minutes, 2 police officers stood in my bedroom. Officer Carter, a tall man in his late 30s with kind eyes, and Officer Wilson, younger, more skeptical. Mom was crying, her performance Oscar-worthy. Officers, thank you for coming. My daughter Abigail has been under so much stress. She's been acting irrationally, destroying things, threatening us. Hannah stood behind Mom, her face the picture of concern, gesturing to my broken phone on the floor. She threw her phone and said she'd hurt us if we tried to stop her from leaving. I stood there, numb with disbelief. This couldn't be happening. That's not what happened, I said, my voice shaking. They're lying. They've been stealing from me. I have proof. Officer Carter looked at me carefully. Ma'am, can you tell us what's going on? I took a breath, trying to organize my thoughts despite the panic clawing at my chest. My mother and sister have stolen over $350,000 from me over the past 6 months. They've opened credit cards and loans in my name without my permission. I have documentation, bank statements, security camera footage. They were planning to flee to Cancun in 3 days. I saw Mom and Hannah exchange a glance. Officer Wilson spoke up. That's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence you can show us right now? I gestured to my phone. It's on my phone, but the screen is broken. I also have documents in my email and cloud storage. Officer Carter nodded. Can you access your email from a computer? Yes, I said, moving toward my laptop. But Hannah suddenly lunged forward and grabbed it. Don't let her, she cried. She'll delete evidence. She's been making up stories about us for weeks. Officer Wilson caught Hannah's arm. Miss, please step back. He turned to me. Ma'am, can you calmly show us this evidence? I opened my laptop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. I pulled up my email, found the photos I'd sent myself, the security camera footage of Hannah in my office, the bank statements showing the withdrawals, the photos of the forged loan documents, and the plane tickets. Officer Carter leaned in, studying the screen. His expression grew serious. Officer Wilson, take a look at this. While they examined the evidence, I glanced at Mom. Her tears had stopped. She was staring at the laptop screen, her face pale. Hannah was crying, but real tears now, not fake ones, tears of fear. Officer Carter straightened up. Ms. Abigail, this is indeed very serious. We're going to need you to come to the station to file an official report. Relief flooded through me. They believed me? However, Officer Wilson added, looking at Mom and Hannah, we'll also need statements from you both. Don't leave town. Mom found her voice. Officers, you don't understand. Abigail has been unstable. She's been borrowing money from us. We have promissory notes. She went to get them from Hannah's room. When she came back, she thrust them at Officer Carter. Look, her signature. She owes us money, and now she's making up these wild accusations. Officer Carter examined the documents. These will need to be analyzed by forensic experts to verify the signatures. He looked at me. Ms. Abigail, do you have any documents with your genuine signature that we can compare? I nodded. My passport, my driver's license, my work contracts, all in my file cabinet downstairs. Officer Wilson went to retrieve them. While we waited, the tension in the room was suffocating. Mom wouldn't look at me. Hannah was sobbing quietly. I felt nothing but cold emptiness. When Officer Wilson returned, Officer Carter compared the signatures. Even I could see the difference. The signatures on the promissory notes were close, but not quite right. The slope of the A was different. The loop of the B wasn't the same. These will need professional analysis, Officer Carter said. But I can see discrepancies. Ms. Abigail, I strongly recommend you come with us to the station to file a full report. We'll also need to seize these documents as evidence. He turned to Mom and Hannah. You're not under arrest at this time, but you're both persons of interest in a fraud investigation. Do not leave the jurisdiction. Mom's mask finally cracked. This is ridiculous. We're her family. She's making this up because she's mentally ill. Officer Wilson's expression hardened. Ma'am, we have evidence that suggests otherwise. If you've done nothing wrong, the investigation will prove that. But the evidence Ms. Abigail has shown us is concerning. I gathered my laptop, my broken phone, and my purse. As I walked toward the door with the officers, I looked back at Mom and Hannah one last time. They stood in my bedroom, the room I'd chosen such careful paint colors for, where I'd felt safe. Now it felt tainted. Everything felt tainted. At the police station, I spent 3 hours giving my statement. I told them everything. The phone call I'd overheard, the missing money, the fake accounts, the forged documents, the plane tickets. I provided access to my bank accounts, my email, my security camera footage. Officer Carter was thorough and patient, taking notes, asking clarifying questions. Ms. Abigail, I want you to know we take financial fraud very seriously, especially when it involves family members exploiting trust. When I was finally done, it was past midnight. Officer Carter drove me back to my house. We'll be investigating this thoroughly, he assured me. In the meantime, I'd recommend staying somewhere else if possible. Do you have friends or family you can stay with? I almost laughed at the irony. Family? I have a colleague who might let me crash on her couch. He nodded. Good. And Ms. Abigail, change your locks tomorrow. Legally, it's your house. You have every right to secure it. I thanked him and got out of the car. The house was dark. As I walked up the driveway, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The front door was wide open. I called Officer Carter back before he could drive away. He got out, hand on his weapon, and we approached together. The house had been ransacked, drawers pulled open, cushions thrown off the couch, papers scattered everywhere. And Mom and Hannah were gone, completely gone. Their rooms were empty. Clothes, toiletries, everything vanished. But they'd taken more than just their belongings. The TV was gone. My jewelry box was empty. My laptop bag that I'd left on the table was gone, along with my backup laptop. Even some of my kitchen appliances had been taken. They'd stripped the place like locusts. Officer Carter called it in immediately. We have a possible burglary and suspects fleeing the scene. He turned to me. I'm sorry, Ms. Abigail. We should have detained them. I walked through my house, seeing the destruction. 2 years of them living in my home, eating my food, spending my money. And this was how it ended, with them stealing everything they could carry and disappearing into the night. Officer Carter stayed while other officers came to document the scene and take photos. A detective, a woman named Emily Torres, arrived around 2 a.m. She was sharp-eyed and efficient. "Ms. Abigail, we've issued a BOLO. Be on the lookout for Mary and Hannah. Do you know what kind of car they have?" I told her about Hannah's blue Toyota Corolla, the one I'd helped her buy last year. Detective Torres nodded. "We'll find them. In the meantime, you should document everything that's missing for your insurance claim." Insurance? Right. I'd have to call them. Add it to the growing list of things I needed to do to put my life back together. Detective Torres left around 3:00 a.m. Officer Carter offered to stay until I could secure the house, but I told him I'd be fine. I wasn't fine, but I needed to be alone. I sat on my couch, surrounded by the wreckage of my home and my life, and finally let myself break. I cried until I had no tears left, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I'd lost my family. I'd lost my money. I'd lost my sense of security. Everything I'd built, everything I'd worked for, felt meaningless. As the sun started to rise, painting my destroyed living room in pale gray light, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let them destroy me completely. I would fight back. I would get through this. I called my colleague Sarah at 7 a.m., not caring that it was early. "Sarah, I need a huge favor." Within an hour, I was at her apartment, showered and wearing borrowed clothes. She made me coffee and toast, which I couldn't eat, and listened as I told her everything. When I finished, she hugged me tight. "You're staying here as long as you need. And Abigail, you're going to get through this. You're the strongest person I know." The next 2 weeks were a blur of police statements, bank meetings, and insurance claims. Detective Torres kept me updated on the investigation. They'd found Hannah's Corolla abandoned at the airport. Security footage showed Mom and Hannah boarding a flight to Dallas, then presumably connecting to an international flight. But the trail went cold there. They'd used fake IDs, probably ones they'd prepared long ago. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment escape. They'd been planning it. The police had contacted Interpol, but finding 2 women who didn't want to be found, possibly in Mexico or beyond, would take time and resources. Meanwhile, I had to deal with the aftermath. My company, thank God, had been supportive. My boss, David, called me into his office 3 days after everything happened. I'd been dreading this conversation. "Abigail, I heard about what happened. I'm so sorry." His genuine sympathy almost broke me again. "Thank you," I managed. He leaned forward. "I want you to know your job is secure. We value you. Take whatever time you need. We'll arrange counseling services if you want them. And if there's anything we can do to help, let me know." I nodded, overwhelmed by his kindness. It felt strange having my boss show more care than my own family had. "Actually," I said hesitantly, "the bank is pressuring me about the fraudulent loans. They want documentation that it wasn't me. Could you provide a letter confirming my employment and salary? It might help prove I had no reason to take out those loans." David nodded immediately. "Absolutely. I'll have HR prepare something comprehensive." That small act of support meant everything. At least I still had my job. At least something in my life remained stable. But the bank situation was getting worse. Even though I'd provided evidence of fraud, the wheels of bureaucracy turned slowly. I was being hounded by debt collectors for money I didn't borrow. My credit score, which had been excellent, was tanking. Every day felt like fighting a new fire. I spent my evenings after work on the phone with credit card companies, banks, fraud departments. Each conversation required me to relive the trauma, explain again and again what had happened. Some representatives were sympathetic, others were skeptical. their tone implying I was trying to avoid paying legitimate debts. One particularly awful day, I broke down on the phone with a debt collector who wouldn't listen to me. "Ma'am, you signed these documents. You took this money. You need to pay it back." "I didn't sign anything," I shouted, then immediately regretted losing my composure. "I'm a victim of identity theft. I filed a police report. I have evidence." The collector was unmoved. "Until the investigation concludes and we receive legal documentation proving fraud, the debt stands. We can set up a payment plan if that helps." I hung up and cried again. I felt like all I did anymore was cry. Sarah found me that evening sitting on her bathroom floor, hugging my knees. "Hey, come on. Let's get you some food." I couldn't eat. I'd lost 15 pounds since this started. Nothing tasted right. Nothing felt right. Then something happened that changed everything. I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "I know where they are." My first instinct was to delete it. It could be spam or, worse, a scam preying on desperate people like me. But curiosity won. I opened it. The message was brief. "I know about Mary and Hannah. I know what they did to you because they did it to me too. Meet me at Bluebird Coffee Shop tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone. I can help. Jessica." I stared at the screen. Jessica. I didn't know anyone named Jessica, but she knew about Mom and Hannah. She knew their names. I forwarded the email to Detective Torres and called her. I got this strange message. Could it be legitimate? Detective Torres was cautious. "It could be someone with information, or it could be dangerous. If you decide to go, we'll have officers nearby watching. Don't go alone in the true sense." So, the next day, wearing jeans and a sweater Sarah had lent me, I walked into Bluebird Coffee Shop in Boulder at exactly 2 p.m. Detective Torres and another officer were in an unmarked car across the street. I ordered a coffee I wouldn't drink and sat at a corner table, my back to the wall, so I could see the entrance. At 2:15, a woman walked in. She was around 34, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a business suit like she'd just come from an office. She looked around, spotted me, and walked over. "Abigail?" I nodded. She sat, down across from me. "I'm Jessica. Thank you for meeting me." Up close, I could see the weariness in her eyes, the same exhausted look I probably had. "How do you know about my mother and sister?" I asked, skipping pleasantries. Jessica took a breath. "Because they did the exact same thing to my family 9 years ago." My blood went cold. "What?" Jessica pulled out a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. Inside were documents, bank statements, police reports, photos. "Mary and Hannah lived with us for 2 years. They said they were fleeing from Abigail's abusive father and needed help. My family took them in. Over those 2 years, they stole $215,000 from us." I flipped through the documents, my hands shaking. There were photos of Mom and Hannah, younger, but unmistakably them. "Wait," I said, my mind struggling to process. 9 years ago? But my father died 2 years ago. Jessica's expression was sad, pitying. "Abigail, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but your father didn't die 2 years ago. He died 9 years ago. I know because I was at his funeral. My mother and your mother were first cousins. That makes us second cousins." The world tilted. "That's impossible. I was at Dad's funeral 2 years ago. I handled everything." Jessica shook her head. "That wasn't real. Your father, William, died in a car accident 9 years ago. Mary collected his life insurance, about $400,000. Then she and Hannah disappeared. They came to us first, claiming to be in trouble, needing help. After they cleaned us out, they vanished again." "But I saw the death certificate," I protested weakly. I planned the funeral. A fake death certificate is easy to forge if you know the right people, Jessica said. And that funeral, who was there? I thought back, really thought back. It had been a small service, closed casket because Mom said the injuries were too severe. Quick cremation, no viewing, and the attendees had been Mom, Hannah, me, and a few people I didn't recognize. People Mom said were Dad's co-workers. Think about it, Jessica pressed gently. Did you ever actually see his body? Did you speak to any of his real friends or family? Did you verify anything independently? The horrible truth settled over me like a shroud. I hadn't. I'd been so grief-stricken, so trusting, that I'd taken everything Mom told me at face value. They faked his death so I'd feel sorry for them, I whispered. So I'd take them in, give them money. Jessica nodded. It's their pattern. After us, we tried to track them. We hired a private investigator. He found evidence of at least 8 other families they'd scammed over 20 years. Different stories each time, but always the same result. They gain trust, steal everything they can, then disappear. 8 families, possibly more. This wasn't just 2 people making bad choices. These were organized, systematic predators. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Jessica's eyes hardened. Because I've spent 9 years trying to find them and get justice. When I saw the news article about your case online, about the police investigation, I knew it was them. And I want to help you catch them. I know where they are. My heart leaped. Where? Jessica pulled out her phone and showed me photos. Recent photos of Mom and Hannah walking on a street. The architecture looked old, colonial. I've been tracking them. They're in a small town called Taos, about 3 hours from here. They rented an apartment under fake names, but I found them. How? Jessica smiled grimly. I've become very good at finding people who don't want to be found. Over the past 9 years, I've tracked financial transactions, social media patterns, anything that could lead me to them. When they used a credit card at a gas station 2 weeks ago, the charge pinged my alert system. I've been watching them ever since. We need to tell the police, I said, reaching for my phone. Already done, Jessica said. I contacted Detective Torres before I emailed you. There's a team ready to move on them. I wanted to meet you first, though, to prepare you. Prepare me for what? Jessica's expression softened. For what you're going to feel when you see them arrested. For the anger, the satisfaction, but also the grief. Because no matter what they've done, they're still your family, and losing that, really truly losing that, is going to hurt. She was right. Even now, even knowing everything, part of me still loved them. Part of me still remembered Mom reading me bedtime stories, Hannah braiding my hair. Those memories were real to me, even if their love wasn't. Are you ready? Jessica asked. The police want to move soon. Today, if possible. They want us both there to identify them positively. Was I ready? I didn't know, but I nodded anyway. Let's finish this. 3 hours later, I was in Detective Torres's car, driving through winding country roads toward Taos, New Mexico. Jessica was in the car behind us with Officer Carter. 2 more police vehicles followed. It was a whole convoy heading to arrest my mother and sister. The town was small, quaint, with tree-lined streets and old buildings. We parked 2 blocks away from the apartment building where they were staying. Detective Torres gave me and Jessica bulletproof vests, just a precaution. We don't expect violence, but we're prepared. My hands shook as I fastened the vest. This was really happening. We walked to the building, officers surrounding us. Apartment 2B, 2nd floor. Detective Torres knocked. Police, open up. For a long moment, nothing. Then footsteps. The door opened, and there was Mom. She saw the officers first. Then her eyes found me. The color drained from her face. "Abigail," she breathed. Then she tried to slam the door, but Officer Carter was faster. He pushed it open, and officers streamed inside. Hannah was sitting on the couch, looking at her phone. When she saw us, she dropped it and tried to run toward the back door, but there were already officers there. She was caught in seconds. I stood in the doorway, watching as they were both handcuffed and read their rights. Mom was crying, pleading. "Abigail, please, you don't understand. We can explain." I walked closer, looking her in the eyes. "Explain what?" "Explain how you faked Dad's death? How you stole over $350,000 from me? How you were planning to frame me with fake loans?" Her expression changed. The mask dropped completely. Now there was only cold calculation. "You can't prove any of that." Detective Torres stepped forward. "Actually, we can. We have extensive evidence, financial records, security footage, forensic analysis of the forged documents, and now testimony from multiple victims spanning 20 years. She gestured to Jessica, who was standing beside me. "You're both under arrest for fraud, identity theft, forgery, and conspiracy. You'll be extradited back to our jurisdiction to face charges." As they were let out in handcuffs, Hannah looked at me. "I hate you," she spat. "This is all your fault. If you'd just kept giving us money, none of this would have happened." Her words should have hurt, but I felt nothing but pity. She actually believed it. She believed they were the victims here. At the police car, Mom turned back one last time. "Abigail, I'm your mother. How can you do this to me?" I met her gaze steadily. "You stopped being my mother a long time ago, if you ever really were." The ride back was silent. I sat in Detective Torres's car, staring out the window as the landscape passed. Jessica reached over and squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing." "I know," I said, but doing the right thing didn't make it hurt less. At the police station, we gave our statements again, identified evidence, provided any additional information we could. It was after midnight when we finally finished. Detective Torres told me they'd found extensive evidence in the apartment. Multiple fake IDs, account information for other victims, evidence of additional frauds. The case against them was airtight. "They'll go to prison for a long time," she assured me, "and we're working with the DA to help recover as much of your money as possible from their assets." I nodded, too exhausted to feel relief. Jessica and I walked out together into the cool night air. "What happens now?" I asked. Jessica smiled, tired but genuine. "Now we rebuild. Both of us." We exchanged numbers, promising to stay in touch. As I watched her drive away, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. Maybe the sense that I wasn't alone in this after all. The trial took 3 months to begin. In that time, I slowly started rebuilding my life. I moved back into my house after changing all the locks and having a security system installed. I couldn't afford to replace everything they'd stolen right away, but I bought a new TV and gradually refurnished the spaces they'd emptied. Each new purchase felt like reclaiming territory. Sarah helped me repaint the rooms, covering up the old colors I'd chosen when I'd still thought I had a family. We painted my bedroom a soft blue, my kitchen a warm yellow. Fresh starts, new beginnings. I went to therapy twice a week. Dr. Thompson, the same psychologist who'd evaluated me during the crisis, became my regular therapist. She helped me process the trauma, the betrayal, the complicated grief of mourning people who were still alive, but dead to me. Work became my sanctuary. David had been true to his word, supporting me throughout. My colleagues were kind, never prying, but always offering help. I threw myself into my job, finding comfort in numbers and spreadsheets where everything made logical sense. Unlike my family, numbers didn't lie. Jessica and I met for coffee every week. We formed an unexpected friendship, bonded by shared trauma. She told me about her therapy journey, about how she'd struggled with trust for years after what Mary and Hannah had done to her family. "It gets easier," she promised. "Not easy, but easier. You learn to trust again, to open up. It just takes time." Time. Everyone said I needed time, but some days, time felt like an enemy, stretching endlessly with pain. The bank situation slowly resolved, with the police evidence and forensic analysis proving the documents were forged. The fraudulent debts were gradually cleared from my record. It was a bureaucratic nightmare, requiring countless phone calls, letters, and forms. But one by one, the accounts closed. The debts vanished. My credit score began to recover. The police had seized assets from Mary and Hannah, including money in offshore accounts they'd been hiding. It wasn't everything, but I recovered $150,000. More than half of what they'd stolen was still gone, spent on who knows what, but $150,000 was something. I put it in a new account at a different bank, one with extensive security measures. I wasn't taking chances again. Then the trial arrived. I sat in the courtroom, Jessica beside me, as the prosecution laid out the case. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records showing systematic theft, security footage of Hannah accessing my accounts, forensic reports proving the signatures were forged, testimony from 8 other victims, families from across the country that Mary and Hannah had destroyed. I listened to their stories, each one eerily similar to mine. They'd all been approached by Mary and Hannah with sob stories. They'd all taken them in, trusted them. They'd all been systematically robbed. The pattern was unmistakable, undeniable. This wasn't opportunistic crime. This was their profession. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Elizabeth Harper, asked me to tell the court what happened. I took a breath and spoke. I told them about the phone call, hearing my own mother say living with me was awful. I told them about discovering the theft, the fake accounts, the forged documents. I told them about being gaslit, almost being committed, watching them flee with my belongings. My voice broke several times, but I pushed through. When I finished, Elizabeth asked, "What impact has this had on your life?" I looked at Mary and Hannah sitting at the defense table. They wouldn't meet my eyes. It destroyed my sense of safety, my ability to trust. I have nightmares. I second-guess every relationship, wondering if people are just using me. But most of all, it killed something inside me, the belief that family means love, that blood matters. I learned the hard way that sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones who hurt you most. The defense tried to paint me as vindictive, as someone who'd willingly given them money and now regretted it. But the evidence was too strong. Camera footage doesn't lie. Forged signatures don't lie. The testimonies of 8 other families don't lie. After 2 weeks of trial, the jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, I held Jessica's hand so tight my fingers hurt. "On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find the defendant Mary Thompson?" "Guilty." "On the count of identity theft?" "Guilty." One by one. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 42 counts between the 2 of them, every single one guilty. Mary broke down, crying real tears this time, tears of despair. Hannah sat stone-faced, staring at nothing. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. I read a victim impact statement, as did Jessica and 3 other victims. We talked about the financial devastation, but more importantly, the emotional destruction. How they'd weaponized trust, turned love into a tool for exploitation. The judge, an older woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, listened to every word. Then she addressed Mary and Hannah directly. In my 30 years on the bench, I've seen many fraudsters. But what makes your crimes particularly heinous is the betrayal of familial trust. You didn't just steal money. You stole from people who loved you, who opened their homes and hearts to you. You are predators of the worst kind, predators who exploit human kindness. She sentenced Mary to 15 years in federal prison. Hannah received 12 years. It should have felt like victory. Justice served. But as I watched them being led away in chains, I felt empty, hollow. They were going to prison, but I couldn't get back the years I'd lost, the innocence, the ability to trust easily. That was gone forever. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. The case had made national news, the audacity of the crime drawing attention. I gave a brief statement. I hope this case serves as a warning. Trust, but verify, even with family, especially with family. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let anyone make you doubt your instincts, Jessica added. And if this has happened to you, speak up. Report it. You deserve justice. That night, back in my house, I sat in my newly painted living room. It looked different now. Lighter, brighter, not haunted by their presence. I thought about everything that had happened. 2 years of lies, $350,000 stolen, my father's death faked, my identity stolen, my home violated. But I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd won. Not completely. You never win completely when the people who hurt you are your own family. But I'd reclaimed my life, my peace, myself. I poured myself a glass of wine, something I rarely did anymore, and raised it in a silent toast to survival, to justice, to the long, difficult road of healing ahead, and to the knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever known. 3 months after the sentencing, I woke up in my house and didn't immediately feel the weight of dread. It was a small thing, but significant. I'd been waking up every morning with anxiety, with the residual trauma of everything that had happened. But that morning, I opened my eyes and felt something different. Not happiness, not yet, but calm. A sense that maybe, just maybe, I was going to be okay. I got out of bed, made coffee, and sat by my window, watching the sunrise. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. This house was mine again, not theirs. Mine. I'd reclaimed it room by room, memory by memory. The new paint colors helped. So did the security system that gave me peace of mind. But most importantly, I'd changed how I thought about this space. It wasn't the place where I'd been betrayed. It was the place where I'd survived. Work continued to be a source of stability. David had promoted me to senior accountant, acknowledging the strength I'd shown through everything. "You've proven you can handle pressure," he'd said. "That kind of resilience is rare." The promotion came with a salary increase, which helped rebuild my savings. I was putting away money again, slowly but surely. Every dollar felt precious now, hard-won. I understood its value in a way I never had before. Jessica and I had become true friends, not just trauma-bonded, but genuinely connected. We met every Saturday morning for coffee, sometimes talking about what happened, but increasingly talking about everything else. Normal things, movies, books, work frustrations, future dreams. She was dating someone new, a kind man who knew her history and respected her boundaries. "You'll find that too," she assured me when I expressed doubts about ever trusting someone romantically. I'd started going to a support group for fraud victims. Hearing other people's stories helped me feel less alone. We shared coping strategies, legal advice, emotional support. One woman, Patricia, had been scammed by her own son. "I thought it would kill me," she told the group. "But I'm still here, scarred, but here." That became my mantra. Scarred, but here. The scars. were part of me now. They'd changed me, made me more cautious, less naively trusting, but they'd also made me stronger, more aware of my own resilience. I'd survived something that should have broken me, and that knowledge carried me through the hard days. Dr. Thompson helped me work through the complicated grief. "You're mourning the family you thought you had," she explained. "That's valid. Those relationships, even if they were based on lies, felt real to you. It's okay to grieve them." I wrote letters I never sent, to Mom, to Hannah, to Dad, who died 9 years before I'd even known it. In those letters, I poured out everything I felt: anger, betrayal, sadness, even moments of reluctant love for the people I'd thought they were. Writing helped. Burning the letters afterward helped more. Watching the paper curl and blacken, the words disappearing into smoke, felt cathartic. Letting go, piece by piece. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during the 2 years I'd focused solely on work and family. Sarah, who'd let me stay with her during the crisis, became one of my closest confidants. She never made me feel like a burden, never tired of listening when I needed to talk. "That's what friends do," she said simply. "They show up." Financial recovery was slower than I'd hoped, but steady. I'd recovered $150,000 from the seized assets. The rest was gone, lost forever to whatever they'd spent it on. I tried not to dwell on it. Money could be earned again. Trust and peace of mind were harder to rebuild, but I was doing it. I'd learned to be smart with money, to check my accounts weekly, to monitor my credit constantly. I'd learned boundaries. I'd learned that generosity didn't mean being a doormat, that helping others shouldn't come at the cost of destroying yourself. These were lessons I'd paid dearly for, but they were mine now, carved into my soul. I wouldn't forget them. 6 months after the trial, I did something I'd been thinking about for a while. I visited Dad's real grave. Jessica had given me the location, a cemetery 3 hours away in Fort Collins where he'd been buried 9 years ago. I stood in front of his headstone, reading his name, William Bennett, and the dates. Died 9 years ago, not 2. I placed flowers on the grave and talked to him. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I didn't know. Mom lied to me, lied about everything. But I'm here now. I'm here, and I'm okay. I hope you're at peace, Dad. I hope wherever you are, you know I loved you." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh earth and flowers. It felt like goodbye. A real goodbye this time, not the manufactured grief of the fake funeral Mom had orchestrated. This was honest, raw, real. I thought about forgiveness, a concept Dr. Thompson had brought up in therapy. "Forgiveness isn't for them," she'd said. "It's for you. It's releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you." Wasn't there yet. Maybe I never would be. But I was learning to let go of the burning rage that had consumed me in the early days. I couldn't stay angry forever. It was too exhausting, too corrosive. Instead, I channeled my energy into building something better. I started volunteering at a financial literacy organization, teaching people how to protect themselves from fraud. If my experience could help even one person avoid what I'd been through, it was worth it. I shared my story at workshops, watching people's faces register shock, then concern, then determination. "Check your credit reports," I'd tell them. "Set up alerts on your accounts. Trust, but verify. Always verify." Jessica and I discussed writing a book together about our experiences, a guide for fraud victims, a warning about familial financial abuse. "We could help so many people," she said, her eyes bright with purpose. I agreed. Turning our pain into something productive, something that could protect others, felt right. We started outlining chapters, comparing notes, crafting our message. It was healing in its own way, transforming victimhood into advocacy. One evening, sitting in my living room with its fresh yellow walls and new furniture, I realized something profound. I was happy. Not deliriously, perfectly happy, but content, at peace. I'd built a life that was truly mine, not defined by obligation to people who'd exploited me. I had genuine friends, meaningful work, purpose, and, most importantly, I had myself. Whole, scarred, but unbroken. I thought about the Abigail who'd driven home that Tuesday evening, the one who'd overheard that devastating phone call. She'd been so trusting, so naive, working herself to exhaustion for people who viewed her as nothing more than a resource to exploit. I mourned her a little, that innocent version of myself. But I also celebrated who I'd become. Stronger, wiser, more guarded, yes, but also more authentic. I no longer performed love for people who didn't deserve it. I no longer gave endlessly without expecting basic respect in return. I'd learned the hardest way possible that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by behavior, by love demonstrated through actions, not just words. Jessica was more family to me now than Mary and Hannah had ever been. So was Sarah. So were my colleagues who'd supported me. Family was the people who showed up, who cared, who proved their love through consistency and kindness. As I sat there, the sun setting outside my window, I thought about the message I wanted to share with anyone who might hear my story. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Don't let anyone weaponize your love against you. Trust is earned, not owed, even to family, especially to family. You have the right to boundaries. You have the right to say no. You have the right to walk away from people who hurt you, regardless of who they are. And if someone makes you feel crazy for noticing their bad behavior, trust your instincts. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. You're seeing the truth, and they're trying to hide it. Stand up for yourself. Report financial abuse. Fight back. You deserve better than to be exploited. You deserve better than to have your kindness used as a weapon against you. And you deserve to know that survival is possible. Recovery is possible. Happiness, real happiness, is possible, even after betrayal this deep. I poured myself a cup of tea and pulled out my journal, something Dr. Thompson had encouraged me to keep. I wrote about my day, about the small victories, the moments of peace. Then I wrote something I hadn't been able to write before. I forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting them, for believing their lies. I forgive myself. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of release, of letting go, of choosing myself, of understanding that I'd done nothing wrong by being kind, by being generous, by loving my family. They'd done wrong by abusing that love. Their actions were theirs to own, not mine to carry. I closed the journal and looked around my home, my sanctuary, my fresh start. I thought about tomorrow and the day after and all the days stretching ahead. There would be hard moments still, triggers, setbacks. Healing wasn't linear, but there would also be joy, growth, connections with people who truly cared, new experiences unburdened by the weight of supporting people who gave nothing back. And I realized something profound. In losing my family, I'd gained something invaluable. I'd gained myself, the real me, not the exhausted, exploited version who'd worked herself to the bone for people who didn't appreciate it, but the authentic me, the one who knew her worth, the one who understood that being alone was infinitely better than being used, the one who could spot red flags and trust her instincts, the one who'd survived and come out stronger. That Abigail was someone I was proud to be. that Abigail was someone I could love, and that made all the difference. So, if you're watching this, and you've experienced something similar, if someone in your family has betrayed you, stolen from you, made you doubt yourself, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You're not stupid for trusting. You're not weak for loving. You're human. And humans are wired to trust their family, to believe in those connections. When that trust is violated, it's devastating. But it doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. Do you stay silent, or do you speak up? Do you let them destroy you, or do you fight back? Do you let the betrayal make you bitter, or do you let it make you wiser? I chose to fight. I chose to speak. I chose to become wiser, and I chose to live. Really live. Not just exist in the shadow of their exploitation. That's my message to you. Choose yourself. Choose your healing. Choose your future, because you deserve so much more than what they gave you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you experienced financial abuse from a family member? How did you handle it? What helped you heal? Share your stories in the comments. Your experience might help someone else who's going through this right now. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear it. Together, we can raise awareness about familial fraud and help protect others from experiencing what we went through. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for your support. I wish you all healing, peace, and the courage to stand up for yourself. Remember, you're not alone. We're in this together. Take care of yourselves, and never let anyone make you feel small for protecting your heart and your life. You matter. Your well-being matters, and you deserve people who treat you like you do.